They say our fate is written in the stars, but for Marcus, it was written on a stained kitchen table during late-night arguments over unpaid utility bills. Marcus grew up in a world where the word expensive was a permanent barrier, a house where financial lack was worn like a badge of moral honor. His father used to say, "Money is the root of all evil," a phrase that echoed through the hallways like a dark, inevitable prophecy. By age 10, Marcus had already internalized a dangerous lie that to be wealthy was to be greedy and to be poor was to be pure. He watched his mother carefully count nickels for bread, her face a map of exhaustion and quiet desperation, a term coined by Henry David Thoreau. This wasn't just a lack of cash, it was a scarcity mindset, a psychological blueprint that convinced him he was simply born to be broke. While other kids dreamed of Ferraris, Marcus dreamed of a refrigerator that was actually full, a simple wish that felt like a betrayal of his roots. Every time he saw a luxury car drive by, a voice in his head, his father's voice, would whisper, "Look at that crook, stealing from the working class." The psychological battle began long before he opened his first bank account. It started with the invisible chains of generational poverty. In his early 20s, Marcus worked 3 jobs, running on caffeine and the desperate hope that hard work alone would be his ticket out. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave, yet his bank balance remained a stagnant reflection of his internal self-worth. He was stuck in a rat race loop, earning money only to lose it to emergency expenses that seemed to manifest whenever he had a surplus. In The Richest Man in Babylon, we learn that a part of all you earn is yours to keep, but Marcus kept nothing for himself. Subconsciously, he was terrified of having too much. If he succeeded, would he still belong to the family that prided itself on struggling? The upper limit problem, as described by Gay Hendricks, was in full effect. Marcus was hitting a glass ceiling of his own making. He would save $1,000, only to accidentally spend it on a flashy gadget he didn't need, sabotaging his progress to stay in his comfort zone. His daily habits were a reflection of chaos, no budget, no vision, and a constant reliance on instant gratification to numb the financial anxiety. Rich people are lucky, he told his friends, failing to see that luck is often where preparation meets opportunity, as Seneca once said. He spent his weekends binge-watching shows, escaping a reality he felt powerless to change, while the compounding interest of his debt grew silently. But everything changed one rainy Tuesday when Marcus found a discarded book at a bus stop, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. As he turned the yellowed pages, he realized for the first time that wealth isn't just a number, it's a neurological state of being. He read about the law of substitution, the idea that you cannot remove a negative thought, you must replace it with a positive one. Marcus looked at his hands, calloused from labor, and wondered if he could actually use his mind to build a different kind of life. The first exercise was simple, but agonizing. He had to stop saying, "I can't afford it," and start asking, "How can I afford it?" This subtle shift in vocabulary forced his brain to move from a state of paralysis to a state of active problem-solving and creativity.
He began to study the habits of the 1%, realizing that their daily routines were built on discipline rather than pure chance. He started waking up at 5 a.m., using the golden hour to read about market trends and the fundamentals of value creation. The high-stakes drama of his life shifted from how do I pay rent to how do I provide more value to the marketplace. He took a leap of faith, investing his last $500 into a digital marketing course instead of paying down a small portion of his credit card debt. His friends laughed. "You're getting scammed," they said, their own scarcity mindsets acting like anchors trying to keep him in the harbor. But Marcus was tired of being a passenger in his own life. He wanted to be the captain of his soul and the master of his fate. The first few months were brutal. He faced rejection after rejection, his ego bruised by the harsh reality of the entrepreneurial world. Every no felt like a confirmation of his father's voice. See, you aren't meant for this. Come back to the safety of the struggle. But Marcus stayed the course, practicing visualization every night, seeing himself closing deals and managing a growing portfolio. He created a vision board on his cracked phone screen, filled with images of clean, modern offices and compounding interest charts. Slowly, the momentum began to shift. A small client signed, then another. The first $1,000 profit felt more significant than any paycheck. He realized that wealth is the ability to fully experience life, as Thoreau said, and he was finally beginning to breathe. However, as the numbers in his bank account began to climb, a new, darker enemy emerged from the shadows of his childhood. It was the guilt of the survivor, the feeling that by rising up, he was leaving his family and his identity behind. Marcus was on the verge of his first $10,000 month, but his brain was screaming for him to hit the brakes and return to the safety of being broke. As Marcus crossed the 5-figure monthly mark, his reality began to fracture. The physical world was changing, but his internal identity was still stuck in that cramped, noisy apartment. The imposter syndrome hit him like a freight train. He felt like a thief who had stolen a life he didn't deserve, waiting for the wealth police to take it all back. He found himself sitting in high-end cafes, but he couldn't bring himself to order anything more than a black coffee, still terrified of wasting money. His success was creating a financial wedge between him and his childhood friends. When they complained about bills, Marcus stayed silent, his silence heavy with unspoken guilt. He realized that many people self-sabotage right at the finish line because the pain of outgrowing their social circle is greater than the desire for freedom. In The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel notes that doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. Marcus's behavior was becoming erratic. He would win a $20,000 contract and then immediately get a speeding ticket or lose his wallet. Classic subconscious leveling behaviors. To fix this, he sought out a mentor, an older man named Elias, who had built several ghost businesses and understood the weight of new money. Elias looked at him and said, "Marcus, you are trying to drive a Ferrari with the emergency brake of your father's beliefs still pulled tight." The lesson was clear. If you don't feel worthy of the wealth, you will find a way to burn it, lose it, or give it away until you are back to your comfortably broke level. Marcus had to start a worthiness audit. He sat down and wrote out every negative thought he had about rich people, realizing he was describing a caricature, not a reality. He began to understand that money is just an energy magnifier. If you are a good person, money makes you a great person. If you are cruel, it makes you a monster. Money is a tool for impact, Elias reminded him. This became Marcus's new mantra, a shield against the arrows of guilt that flew every time he checked his balance. He started a daily gratitude and growth journal, documenting not just what he earned, but how that money was helping him provide for others. The high-stakes drama reached a peak when he hit his first $100,000 in liquid savings. It was a number his parents hadn't seen in their entire lives combined. That night, he didn't celebrate. He sat in the dark, shaking. The poverty ghost was whispering that he was now one of them, the people his father hated. He almost called his bank to donate it all, just to stop the feeling of being an outcast from his own family's history. But then he remembered the oxygen mask rule. You cannot help others if you are gasping for air yourself. Being broke was not a service to the poor. He realized that by staying poor, he was just another person who needed help, rather than a person who could provide it. Marcus began to study wealth psychology experts like Tony Robbins, who teaches that where focus goes, energy flows. He had to focus on the utility of wealth. He started his first mental exercise, the future self-invitation. He would close his eyes and imagine the Marcus of 5 years from now. This future Marcus wasn't stressed. He was calm, generous, and healthy. He wasn't a crook, he was a pillar of his community and a creator of jobs. By connecting with this future version, the current Marcus began to see his wealth as a bridge to that man, rather than a betrayal of his past. He also learned about pay yourself first. Every time a payment came in, he moved 20% into an investment account before he could even think about spending it. This wasn't just about math, it was about neural reconditioning. He was teaching his brain that he was a person who accumulated rather than just circulated. He started small with index funds and ETFs, moving away from the get-rich-quick schemes that plague the desperate and the broke. He watched the power of compounding in real time. It wasn't magic, it was math. It was patience turned into profit, as he liked to call it. But the true test came when his brother called asking for a loan for a business idea that was clearly a gamble. The old Marcus would have said yes out of guilt. The new Marcus knew that enabling is not helping. He offered his brother a book on financial literacy and a job at his company instead. The backlash was immediate. His family called him cold and arrogant. The drama was intense, a psychological war between blood and boundaries. It was the hardest no he ever had to say. He went to bed that night feeling like a villain, but he woke up the next morning with his capital intact. He realized that to truly attract wealth, you must be willing to be misunderstood by those who aren't ready to grow with you. He started a morning power walk, listening to podcasts about macroeconomics and value investing to drown out the noise of his critics. He learned that the K-shaped recovery wasn't just a market trend, it was happening in his own life. Some were going up, others were sliding down. He decided he would be the one to pull others up, but only those who were willing to reach for his hand. He wasn't a life raft for people who wanted to drown.
His investing habits became boring. He avoided the market wipeouts by staying diversified, ignoring the hype of meme stocks and overnight millions. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Warren Buffett's words became his North Star. He hit the $250,000 mark. The guilt was fading, replaced by a profound sense of responsible stewardship. He was now a manager of resources. He began to mentor others, sharing the very mental exercises that saved him. He saw his own struggle in their eyes and knew the way out. But a new challenge appeared on the horizon, the complexity trap. As his wealth grew, so did the stakes, and a single mistake could cost him everything. The complexity trap wasn't about the money, it was about the noise. Marcus realized that as his wealth grew, so did the number of people trying to tell him how to spend it. He had to return to the basics. He began a practice called the Stoic filter, inspired by Marcus Aurelius. He asked, "Is this essential, or is this my ego talking?" His daily habits shifted from hustling to deep work. He realized that 1 hour of focused, high-leverage thinking was worth 40 hours of busy work. Marcus understood that wealth is what you don't see, a core lesson from the psychology of money. It's the cars not purchased and the diamonds not bought. He started a mental exercise called the ghost business simulation. He would imagine his main income stream vanished overnight. What would he do? How would he adapt? This exercise removed the fear of loss by proving to his brain that his true wealth was his skill set, not his bank balance. He began to invest in human capital, his own health and education. He hired a nutritionist and a high-performance coach. Wealth was useless without a body to enjoy it. Your network is your net worth. Marcus began curated networking, seeking out people who were 10 steps ahead of him. He wasn't the smartest person in the room anymore.
He learned about asymmetric risk, investments where the downside was limited but the upside was infinite. He was no longer gambling, he was calculating. The drama escalated when a former business partner attempted to sue him over a misunderstanding. Marcus didn't panic. He had FU money and a solid legal team. For the first time, he saw money as a shield. It didn't just buy things, it bought peace of mind, time, and the ability to fight for the truth. He practiced the $0 reflection. Every Sunday, he would spend the day as if he were broke, eating simple food, walking everywhere, and reading at the library. This grounded him. It reminded him that his happiness wasn't tied to his luxury, removing the hedonic treadmill effect that destroys many lottery winners. Financial freedom is the ability to live life on your terms, he told his growing audience. He was now a financial educator, turning his pain into a curriculum. He introduced the 1% rule. Never spend more than 1% of your net worth on a single luxury purchase. This kept his lifestyle creep in a cage. Marcus began to study the Great Depression and market wipeouts of the past. He wanted to be anti-fragile, to grow stronger when the world got chaotic. He moved his focus to passive income. He wanted his money to work while he slept, so he didn't have to work until he died. The high-stakes moment came when a market dip wiped out 15% of his portfolio in a week. His old self would have panicked and sold everything. The new Marcus saw a sales event. He used his cash reserves to buy more, following the blood in the streets philosophy of Baron Rothschild. He hit the $500,000 mark, $500,000. It felt different than the first 100K. There was no shaking, no guilt, just a quiet, focused resolve. He realized that the first 100K is a bitch, but the next 400K is a breeze because of the momentum of compounding interest. Marcus started the legacy letter exercise, writing a letter to his future children about the values of money, hard work, and character. He was rewriting his family's genetic code. He was no longer the broke kid, he was the ancestor who changed everything. He began a digital minimalism phase. He deleted social media apps that triggered comparison syndrome, the thief of all joy. He focused on deep value investing. He looked for companies that solved real problems, not just those with hype and glitter. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Benjamin Franklin's quote was etched into his mind and his daily schedule. He faced a moral dilemma, a high-paying partnership with a company that had questionable ethics. Marcus said no within seconds. His wealth mindset was now so strong that he prioritized his integrity capital over actual capital. He couldn't be bought. He started a mastermind group for other entrepreneurs from broke backgrounds. He was building a new tribe based on growth, not grievances. His habit of strategic boredom became a secret weapon. He sat in silence for 20 minutes a day, letting his subconscious solve complex problems. Wealth is not about having a lot of money, it's about having a lot of options, he wrote in his newsletter. His options were now limitless. He took his first work-free month, traveling to a remote village to realize that life's greatest pleasures are often free: sunsets, conversation, and health. He came back with a new ghost business idea, a financial literacy platform for schools. He wanted to kill the money is evil myth at the root. He was no longer attracting wealth, he was radiating value. The money was simply a byproduct of the person he had become. He practiced the negative visualization. He imagined losing his sight or his health. Suddenly, his money problems felt insignificant and manageable. This mental exercise made him immune to stress. When a big deal fell through, he just shrugged and moved to the next one. He learned that success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose, as Bill Gates famously said. Marcus stayed humble. He still drove a reliable 5-year-old car. He didn't need to signal wealth because he actually had it. He hit the $750,000 mark. The millionaire title was within sight, but more importantly, the poverty brain was officially dead. He stood on his balcony looking at the city lights and realized he wasn't just wealthy, he was finally, truly free. The jump from high income to true wealth required a shift from being a player to being the owner of the stadium. Marcus realized he needed systems, not just effort.
he developed the ghost business model, ventures that operated without his physical presence, using AI automation and remote teams to handle the heavy lifting. Every dollar he earned was now a soldier. He sent them out into the world to fight for more territory, bringing back prisoners in the form of interest and dividends. He revisited The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, learning to ignore Mr. Market's daily mood swings and focus on the underlying value of his assets. Marcus began to diversify into real estate. He didn't want fancy mansions, he bought cash-flowing multifamily units that provided shelter and steady rent. He used a tax-advantaged strategy, legally keeping more of what he earned by reinvesting in ways that the government incentivized for job creators. His investing habit was now mechanical. He never checked the price of his holdings more than once a month. Checking too often is a tax on your peace, he noted. The high-stakes drama returned when a major tech bubble burst. The media was screaming about a market wipeout and a total economic collapse. While others were selling in a panic, Marcus was rebalancing. He moved gains from his stable bonds into the now cheap, high-quality stocks. Fortune favors the bold, but it rewards the prepared, he told his followers during a live stream that went viral. His calm was infectious. He shared his emergency fund structure, 2 years of living expenses in liquid cash. This sleep well at night fund was his ultimate psychological weapon. He began to look at macroeconomic trends, studying the debt cycles explained by Ray Dalio. He wasn't just playing the game, he was reading the board. Marcus realized that most people fail because they over-leverage during the good times, leaving them vulnerable when the inevitable winter arrives. He kept his personal expenses at the same level as when he earned $100K, even as his net worth approached $900K. The gap was his wealth engine. He started a mastery habit, spending 2 hours a day learning a skill that couldn't be easily replaced by AI, like high-level negotiation and empathy. AI is the lever, but your character is the fulcrum, he wrote. He used tools to scale his content, but the soul of his message remained human. He faced a black swan event, a sudden regulatory change that threatened one of his main income streams. The old Marcus would have spiraled into depression. The new Marcus simply pivoted. Because he had multiple streams of income, a leak in one bucket didn't mean he would die of thirst. He learned the power of compound skill sets. Combining finance, storytelling, and technology made him a category of one. He hit the $1 million mark. There were no fireworks, just a quiet Tuesday morning with a cup of coffee, and a sense of mission accomplished. The word millionaire didn't feel like a status, it felt like a responsibility. He was now a capital allocator for the future. He went back to his old neighborhood, not to show off, but to visit the local library where he had found that first life-changing book. He donated a financial literacy wing to the library, filled with modern tools, computers, and a curriculum on how to build ghost businesses. Seeing the kids there, hungry for knowledge but trapped by their surroundings, Marcus felt the final layers of his childhood guilt dissolve. "I didn't leave you," he whispered to the memory of his younger self. "I went ahead to build a map so you could find your way out too." He started the Wealthy Mind podcast, interviewing people who had overcome extreme adversity to build lives of significance. He taught them Rule of 72, a simple way to calculate how long it takes for your money to double. Knowledge was the antidote to fear. Marcus began to explore philanthropy as an investment. He looked for social enterprises that were self-sustaining, not just charities that needed constant refills. His daily routine was now a masterpiece of efficiency: morning exercise, deep work, family time, and evening reflection. "The goal isn't to be rich, the goal is to be free," he emphasized. He turned down a $1 million deal because it would have cost him his freedom. He studied the K-shaped recovery in real time, helping his audience position themselves on the upward arm of the graph through education. He warned against status games. Buying things to impress people you don't like with money you don't have is the fastest way back to being broke.
He practiced the selective no. He said no to 99% of opportunities so he could say a massive yes to the 1% that truly mattered. His wealth was now generational. He set up trusts that wouldn't just give his children money, but would incentivize them to create value. He reflected on the mental exercises from his early days. They were no longer exercises. They were his default way of breathing. The drama of the market continued, but Marcus was the eye of the storm. He had rewritten his brain so deeply that fear couldn't find a grip. He learned that true wealth is the ability to say, "I have enough," a concept that escapes even many billionaires. He used his platform to expose get-rich-quick scams, protecting his community from the predators that haunt the desperate. His investing habits were now shared by thousands. He wasn't just a man with a bank account, he was the leader of a movement. As he looked toward the future, he realized the wealth mindset wasn't a destination, it was a never-ending journey of growth and service. Wealth, Marcus realized, was not the end of the journey, it was the beginning of a different kind of work, the work of maintaining a spirit that doesn't get corrupted by comfort. He adopted the maintenance habit, checking his ego every morning. He reminded himself that he was only one series of bad decisions away from losing his edge. He began to study the Stoic joy, finding happiness in things that could not be taken away, his integrity, his curiosity, and his ability to serve. The high-stakes drama now involved global impact. He started a foundation that didn't just give fish, but taught thousands how to build the entire fishing industry using AI. To whom much is given, much is required. This wasn't a burden for Marcus, it was the fuel that got him out of bed every morning. He watched his ghost businesses thrive, providing jobs for hundreds of families. The K-shaped recovery was being bridged by his efforts. He learned about cognitive biases, like the sunk cost fallacy, ensuring he never threw good money after bad just to save face. Marcus became a master of time billionaire philosophy. He realized that a young person with no money is richer than an old billionaire with no time. He used his wealth to buy back his time, spending hours in nature or with loved ones, the ultimate luxury that his father could never afford. He faced a final psychological test, a massive market correction that tested his resolve. He slept like a baby, knowing his systems were anti-fragile. He shared his wealth portfolio transparently with his students, showing them that it wasn't about perfect timing, but about time in the market. "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world," he quoted Einstein. He showed how a small seed of $100 could grow into a forest over decades. He developed a financial first aid kit for his followers, a simple checklist for when the economy gets scary. Education was the cure for panic. Marcus reflected on the mental exercises he used to stop self-sabotaging. He realized they were essentially brain reprogramming protocols. He had deleted the broke software and installed the Wealth OS. The glitches of guilt and fear were finally gone. He celebrated his parents' 40th anniversary by paying off their mortgage and setting up a medical fund. He didn't do it to show off, but to heal. His father looked at him, eyes moist, and said, "I was wrong, Marcus. Money isn't the root of evil. The lack of it is." That moment was worth more than the $1 million. It was the emotional ROI that he had been working toward for 15 years. He realized that wealth is the freedom to be who you truly are, without the mask of survival or the weight of scarcity. Marcus began to write his own book, Born to be Broke, Built to be Free. It became a blueprint for the next generation of cycle breakers. He taught the high-performance habit of reflection. Every evening he asked, "How did I move the needle today? Whom did I help?" His investing habit was now impact investing. He funded clean water projects and affordable housing, seeing his capital as a force for good. "Don't work for money, make money work for you," he preached. It was an old adage, but he had lived it until it became a physical reality. He looked at the macro trends for the next decade, positioning his community to benefit from the rise of decentralized finance and AI. He remained a lifelong learner, knowing that the moment you think you know it all is the moment you start to decline. He practiced the deathbed meditation, asking himself what he would care about in his final moments. It wasn't his bank balance, it was his legacy. This perspective made him fearless. He took calculated risks that others shied away from, seeing opportunities where they saw obstacles. He became a silent philanthropist, giving away millions without his name on a single building. The ego was finally under total control. He watched his first student reach their own 100K mark. The cycle was repeating, but this time it was a cycle of abundance. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. He urged his audience to start today, no matter how small. Marcus realized he had rewritten his brain, but in doing so, he had also helped rewrite the future for thousands of others. He stood in his garden, planting actual seeds, a metaphor for the financial seeds he had scattered across the world. He was no longer the boy who was born to be broke. He was the man who was designed to be free. The guilt was replaced by grace. The fear was replaced by faith. The lack was replaced by logic. He had mastered the mental exercises of wealth, from visualization to selective ignorance of the noise. His daily habits were his fortress. They protected him from the volatility of the world and the volatility of the human heart. Wealth is not a destination, it's the ability to enjoy the journey, he said, as he watched the sun dip below the horizon. He was Marcus, a son of struggle, a student of success, and a teacher of truth. The final scene of his story wasn't a bank vault, it was a quiet room, a deep breath, and a heart at peace. He had rewritten his brain, he had rewritten his life, and now he was inviting the world to do the same. Start today.